All right, ready for a deep dive?
Let's do it.
Today, we're going way back to the early 2000s, San Francisco.
Back when things were a little different, huh?
Definitely. We're talking about Kamala Harris and Kimberly Guilfoyle, two ambitious women, both making names for themselves as prosecutors.
And this New York Times article we're looking at, it paints a fascinating picture of their early careers, their rivalry, and how their paths diverged so dramatically.
So picture San Francisco back then. You've got Terrence Cayo Hallinan, the district attorney, a former boxer, by the way.
I love that detail. It really sets the stage, doesn't it?
Totally. And then there's Gavin Newsom, the young mayor, married to, you guessed it, Kimberly Guilfoyle. Talk about a power couple.
It's like something out of a movie, and it's in this world, this very specific time and place, that these two rising legal stars' paths collide.
And collide they do. At the heart of the story is Guilfoyle's claim that Harris actually tried to block her from getting a job at the DA's office.
Yeah, this isn't just some vague rumor either. Guilfoyle says Harris actually called her up, pretended to be on some hiring committee which didn't exist.
Hold on, wait. A fake hiring committee? That's bold? What did Harris supposedly say?
Basically, that there was no budget to hire Guilfoyle, so don't even bother.
Wow. Okay, so that's Guilfoyle's side, but what does Harris say? Did she deny it?
She claims she was just trying to help Guilfoyle.
Help! Come on, that sounds a little, I don't know.
Right. And here's where it gets even juicier. Hallinan, the DA himself, he backs up Guilfoyle's story. He actually kept a note. Can you believe it?
What did it say? Spill the tea.
He wrote, "Timing is everything." It's kind of cryptic, but definitely suggests something was up.
So Harris tries to block her, but Hallinan hires Guilfoyle anyway.
Seems that way. It really makes you think about the power dynamics at play, even back then.
It's like this story is about so much more than just two women, right?
Absolutely. It's a glimpse into ambition, rivalry, and how women in power are often perceived.
And let's not forget, this story reemerges during the 2024 presidential race. Why now? What's the motivation?
Right. It makes you wonder, is this old rivalry resurfacing or a calculated move to undermine Harris's campaign?
And how do they each handle it? It's like night and day.
It is. Guilfoyle, she doesn't shy away from it. She's been pretty vocal about the whole thing.
And Harris.
Silence. Not a peep.
Really?
Totally tight-lipped.
Yeah.
The article mentions that even those close to her during that time in San Francisco, they clam up when the subject comes up.
Wow, that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It really does. And, it's interesting, this difference in their approach, it kind of foreshadows their paths to power, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, you've got Harris, the strategic player, always thinking 10 steps ahead, careful about her image.
And Guilfoyle.
She's not afraid to be outspoken, to make a splash, even if it ruffles some feathers.
It's like they embody two totally different styles of American politics, playing out on a national stage.
Exactly. And this story, it all goes back to those early days in San Francisco.
Wild, right? Who knew a supposed rivalry between two lawyers could be so revealing?
You never know where these deep dives will take us. And it's fascinating how both women's careers kind of spiral out from that shared beginning in San Francisco.
Right, and the tensions, they don't exactly fizzle out either. Cut to the 2003 district attorney race in San Francisco.
Where Harris is running, of course.
Exactly. And this rivalry, it becomes public. The New York Times even had a headline at the time, "Brains, Brio, Beauty and Wounded Feelings."
Catchy.
Right. And there was a cartoon, too. It showed Harris literally blocking Guilfoyle from getting into a room.
Oh, I remember that. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
You couldn't escape the narrative, could you?
Not really. And it all came out, like, weeks before the election.
Talk about timing. It makes you wonder, was it a coincidence?
Right. Was Guilfoyle trying to settle the score, you think?
The article mentions that she felt compelled to speak about it because she was not happy about Harris running for DA.
So maybe a little bit of both.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely added fuel to the fire.
And then there's that incredibly awkward moment during one of the debates.
Oh, you mean when Harris and Hallinan, remember he was the DA who'd hired both of them? Yeah. They have this tense off-air exchange about Guilfoyle.
Yeah, and the moderator has to, like, address it. It's so awkward. Do you think they knew the cameras were still rolling?
Probably not.
Yeah.
It felt very off the cuff. But in true political fashion, Harris handles it smoothly. She says she has a great deal of respect for Guilfoyle and looks forward to maybe working with her.
All very diplomatic.
Very.
Mm.
But then Hallinan jumps in.
And doesn't hold back, right?
Not at all. He basically confirms that Harris tried to block Guilfoyle from being hired.
It's like something out of House of Cards, honestly.
Total power play.
So, to sort of recap, Harris, she wins the election, becomes DA Guilfoyle. She's married to the new mayor now, Gavin Newsom.
That's right. and she starts spending more time in New York, eventually ends up on TV.
A different kind of stage.
For sure. And their paths really diverge at this point. Guilfoyle, she's on court TV, very public. Harris is building her reputation, climbing the political ladder, very strategic. But there's this interesting tidbit in the article about a public art project in 2004.
What was it?
It featured both Harris's and Guilfoyle's faces.
No way. Really?
Yup, on opposite sides of a giant heart.
You can't make this stuff up.
I know, right? The artist said he chose them because they were both strong women who care a lot about justice. It's almost poetic, isn't it?
In a weird San Francisco kind of way.
Totally. But it does make you think, even when there's rivalry, there can be common ground, at least for a little while.
Before their paths totally diverged, that is. It's amazing, isn't it? From those early days in San Francisco, their careers take such different turns.
It's like they illustrate two opposite ends of the political spectrum, don't they?
Totally. You have Harris, the vice president, always so strategic, so careful. And then there's Guilfoyle.
Outspoken. Right.
Exactly. A huge voice in the conservative movement. A total Trump supporter.
It makes you think, those early years in San Francisco, did they shape their views in ways we don't even realize?
Right, like did those experiences, the rivalry, the ambition, did it all kind of solidify their worldviews?
That's what's so fascinating about this whole story. The article doesn't give us the answer, but it makes you think about those bigger questions.
Like we're seeing the long game play out, you know?
Totally. And how they each react to this story now, it's so telling.
Because Harris, she's quiet, right? She doesn't engage.
Not a word. And Guilfoyle.
She's talking about it still.
Oh, yeah. The article even mentions that she still brings it up sometimes, even hints that Harris was given advantages throughout her career.
Wow. It's like those old tensions never really go away, do they?
It seems not, and it kind of plays into that bigger conversation about women and ambition, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, think about it. Two successful women, their pasts get brought up, and suddenly it's all about rivalry and competition.
Instead of just, acknowledging their accomplishments, it's frustrating.
It is. And this deep dive, it reminds us that those narratives, they're rarely the whole story.
Exactly. It's so much more nuanced than that, right?
Way more. It's about ambition, sure, but also political maneuvering, the complexities of power.
Yeah.
These are human things, not just women things.
So what are we left with? What's the takeaway from all of this? From those early days in San Francisco to where they are now?
I think it reminds us that every headline, every political story, there's a whole human history behind it.
Right, like those faces on the side of that building the art project, so much history condensed into one image.
And it challenges us to dig deeper, to look beyond those simple explanations, to ask more questions.
And to examine our own biases, right? How we view women in power, how we interpret their stories.
Absolutely. Because often the most important takeaways aren't about finding answers, but about asking the right questions.
And maybe realizing that some stories, they don't have a neat ending, they just keep evolving.
Exactly. And as we follow their journeys, Harris, Guilfoyle, whoever it may be,
We take those questions with us.
and hopefully we learn something along the way.